Hello. So I'm just going to review how to make different types of repeating patterns in Adobe Illustrator here. So I'm going to hit Create New, and we can choose at Mass Art between 11 by 13 or 11 by 14 and 11 by 17, which is tabloid. Sorry, my computer seems to be running pretty slow. And we can hit create here. So I have tabloid selected. It might be under the print tab, tabloid, and you can change the units over here to inches to make sure it's 11 by 17. You don't have to worry about pixels or anything in Adobe Illustrator because it is a vector program. It's not raster based, so you can never have like too few pixels. I'm just going to start by drawing, reminding us what a few of these repeating pattern types are. So I hit Control plus to zoom in, and I'm just going to zoom over. So we have straight repeat slash grid. We have half drop slash brick by column. And then there is what I just will call brick most of the time, slash brick by row. So a straight grid just looks like a grid. Right? And each shape in the grid is even with the shape on its top and its bottom. On half drop, things take a step down in every other row. So things are still even with the ones on the top, with the tiles on the top and the bottom of themselves, but on the tiles to the left and the right, everything takes a half step down. One more column. So this is called a half drop because it takes a half step down, or that's how I will probably refer to it. But Illustrator refers to it as a brick by column. A traditional brick is a half drop turned 90 degrees. So if we draw a row, the hearts or the shapes inside your tiles are still perfectly lined up left to right, but with their top and bottom neighbors, everything takes a half step off. One more row. Okay, so I'm going to make 3 quick patterns in each of these styles in Illustrator. And I'm going to use a background color on them, and there's going to be overlap on the edges of the tile, just which all of those things make everything a little bit more complicated. I'm going to make a new layer with my layers panel and shut off this layer. So it would be very straightforward to make a straight repeat, a half drop, and a brick if you just had one shape out. So I could draw out the star. I'm just clicking and holding on the rectangle tool. Sorry, my phone is flipping out. Someone's blowing me up. So if we just had a star and we wanted to do that similar to how I drew the heart in that example drawing, I can make this star whatever color I want by clicking on the fill, right? The fill is the solid square, and the square with the line on it is the outline, right? So I can give it a red fill and a black outline. I can make the outline really thick by coming up to the properties panel and choosing more. I'm on the layout setting, just as a reminder. Yours might automatically open on essentials, which doesn't have this top panel, and you would change the stroke over here, but I always teach on layout. Anyway, there's our star, and if we wanted to make a repeating pattern of this, we could just go to Object, Pattern, Make. You can see the star got added there as a repeating pattern in the swatches panel. Okay, so the swatches panel is what houses not only solid colors, but repeating patterns. So right now it's in the grid layout. You can see in the pattern option where you change the grid layout, and I could change it easily to brick by row or brick by column. But this is a transparent pattern. It doesn't have a background, and it also doesn't have any kind of overlap over the edge of the tile, in which things, especially when you do bricks by row, things can just get more complicated when you do that. So we're trying to give you a foolproof way of kind of making it work every time with this lesson, without having to fiddle too much in the pattern options, which can really slow down your computer. We're kind of trying to define everything. I'm hitting done here, and actually the pattern will be saved. And just to show you how you get your pattern on an object really quick, or how you see it now that we've hit done and we aren't in the pattern editing mode, I'm going to choose my fill pattern, choose my swatches, and choose my half drop stars. But notice it is transparent. It doesn't have a background. Okay, so we are going to use text to make a pattern, to make a few of these patterns. And we can do just one letter over and over again, or we can use the letters to make various shapes. But we can also use words. So I'll try to give you a few examples. I am clicking and dragging an area with the type tool, and it's filling it with lorem ipsum, which is just that like fake Latin that typesetters and editors use, like to see how things are going to look without the text in it yet. So we can delete all of that. I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard. There we go. And I can type in a good word. I'm just going to use my name. It's a good word. I always have a hard time with that. And I'm just coming up to the properties panel again, and we can raise the size of the font. I can even raise it past 72 by typing it in there and hitting enter. Now, right now, this is still text, and there are various reasons why we want to convert it to vector before we start editing, right? This isn't a vector right now like the star was. It is text and it acts as text, right? So if we grab the text tool, we can still edit this. I can change the font to something more interesting up here under character. But we can turn it into vectors by going to type, create outlines. And you're also going to notice that the size of the bounding, the size of this box around it is going to shrink significantly, which is helpful when you're making patterns because sometimes the pattern design mode will crop it to the edge of your box and not the edge of your shape. So create outlines, see how much smaller the bounding box is. That's just one of the reasons. So to get into it, there is a black selection tool and a direct selection tool up here, a selection tool and a direct selection tool. They're black and white. I generally refer to them as the black selection tool and the white selection tool. So the black one selects the whole object, right? Where the white one can select just a part of the object. In this case, it will select the individual letters, but when you choose it, it'll still be a group. When you choose it with the black selection one, it's still grouped. I kind of like to be able to be sure that I'm not accidentally going to click on an anchor point when I'm editing these. I'm just hitting Control plus to zoom in, because the white selection tool can also accidentally or on purpose change the shape of the outlines now. So I could make kind of a custom font with these. But it can kind of happen accidentally. So it's a lot safer to ungroup this whole group by going to Object, Ungroup. And we can move these letters around. I'm going to kind of keep them in the order of the words for this example. We don't have to go crazy here. This is just going to be the straight repeat. So with this straight repeat, if I want this Y to be coming in back over this K, or maybe just intersecting right below it like the rest of these are, I'm going to need to tell the system like kind of how to do that. And maybe I want this E to be coming back in on the bottom a little bit for all of these. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. You can click and hold on this tool to see all the other tools. And I'm going to draw a box. And I know I want it... to end somewhere right there. This isn't very helpful right now. It's hard to visualize it because I drew the box in front and it's black. So I'm going to change the color first. I have fill selected, and then if I want to, I can go to my swatches panel and choose something, or I can always double click on the fill box. The fill is the solid one. This one is the stroke, and for your background, you really want this stroke on your background box to be none, to have no stroke on it. So to put no stroke on something, like let's say it did have a stroke, right? So it has this like purple outline right now. We just make sure that the stroke box is in the front, it has the hole in it, and we choose this Ghostbuster symbol, none. I didn't actually do it with this selected. It should be selected with the black selection tool for it to work. There we go. And now I'm going to send it to back. Object, arrange, send to back, or right click, arrange, send to back if you have right click set up. So I want this to come out over here. I know that because this is a straight repeat, everything that goes off the edge of the box is going to come back on the other edge of the box. So the K should poke in right about there. I don't like how far this Y points out, so I can actually move it down. I just clicked and dragged with the white selection tool around all of these anchor points, which make up this shape, and I'm going to bring it back down. Right now, it's easiest with these patterns if things don't go off the edge like this. This would mean you would have to copy and paste it 3 times, so I'm just trying to keep it simple, so we have to copy and paste everything just once, or copy and transform, or copy and move everything just once. We're not going to use paste. But now that this doesn't go off into kind of this quadrant up here, it should be a little bit easier. Okay. Let's get to it. I'm going to, now that I think I have this a pretty good size, maybe a tiny bit bigger, I'm going to write down what size this box is. So on mine, for some reason, it's hidden in here under the shape button, but it's 6.1 by 2.5 and I am just going to trim these to 6.1, and I'm going to unclick constrain width and height proportions and change this to 2.5. I don't know why this did that. You do want it to be very precise, so it's easier when the shape is these rounder numbers, and it really shouldn't make too much of a difference on your repeat pattern. So now that we know those sizes, 6.1, 2.5, I can even write them down really quick. I can start copying and pasting these. So everything that's going off of the right, or anything, if anything were going off the left, gets transported directly across 6.1, right? Because this is the X, and this is the Y, right? X is left and right, Y is up and down. Okay, in some cases later on we're going to have to transform things or move things so that they go left and up, or like left and down, but right now with the straight repeat we are just going to go left to right. Okay, so object, transform, move. And I like to start off by zeroing both of these out and then checking preview. So right now it's not moving at all. And then horizontally we want it to move 6.1 inches, and I think that's going to be negative 6.1. And we've checked off preview, so we can see if I toggle it on and off that it is clicking over there, or it does look like it's moving to exactly the spot where it's going off on this one. That's where it's landing on this one. And if I hit OK, it will just move it over there, and we won't have a copy over here. And the idea is that we are going to make a seamless tile. So if we trimmed away all the edges, we would have a seamless repeat. So we actually need it to stay on the right and be on the left. So we're going to hit copy. Yeah, Kelsey. So right now, I should never touch these Y's again because I have set them up where they are. I really just want to pretty much leave them be because I've already done all that work on them. I still have an opportunity to adjust this K, so I'm going to adjust it so it's not touching the Y anymore. But now, after I copy the K up to the top, I won't want to touch it again. So I can select the K and hold Shift and the L and the E. And we are going to transform them all up to the top. So Object, Transform, Move. I like setting these both to 0 and checking Preview so they haven't moved at all. And then 2.5 up. Illustrator is going to surprise us. Normally up is positive in any reasonable situation. I typed it into the horizontal, but I mean to type it into the vertical, which is why it's nice to have preview checked, so you can double check. But when I type in 2.5, a positive 2.5, it sends me down for some reason. So negative 2.5 to go up, and there we are. So I'm going to hit copy, because again, we want two versions of these. Copy. So I should not touch pretty much any of the letters on this except for the E and the S, and I think I am going to take the opportunity to kind of even those out. Everything else is pretty even. And that is looking pretty good. I don't like how the Y overlaps with the K, and so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I can grab this Y and hold Shift and choose this Y, and now they are actually going to move at the same rate, so I know that they will still be perfect with each other. So that is an option, and I just use the arrow on my keyboard, the arrows on my keyboards, to move them that tiny amount. So right now, if we defined this as a pattern, there would be big white lines in our pattern. Let me show you in case you see this problem for yourself. So where we wanted it to just say Kelsey like once in each tile, it kind of says it all over the place. Basically, it's clipping to the edge of the letters and not to the edge of our background box that we want it to clip to. So we are going to kind of make a bounding box, is what I've been calling it. So I'm going to hit cancel so we don't save this pattern because it's wrong. And this is how you make a bounding box. I'm hopefully going to do it a couple more times here as we get into the half drop and the straight and the brick coming up. But I'm going to go to edit copy. I have my background box selected with my black selection tool. Edit copy, edit paste in back. This is assuming this is going to work. Paste in back is only going to work if you are sure that your if you are sure the box you have selected is actually the backmost object in this little stack. Illustrator works in little stacks, right? And we can edit the stacks by going to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. So if we go to Edit, Paste in Back, right now, because I know that my box was the backmost thing, we've added kind of a second backmost thing. Just in case, I can go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and now the box that I have selected is for sure the backmost thing. And this kind of bounding box, clipping box, has to be the backmost object for it to work, and it also has to have no fill and no outline. So my outline, my stroke box, already has none on it, but my fill box also has none on it, or it should also have none on it. So I'm just clicking the little Ghostbusters symbol, the little slashy symbol down there. Beautiful. Now this empty box, this invisible empty box back there, should define this selection, or define this pattern to clip to the edges. So I'm going to select everything again by dragging a box around it with my black selection tool. And I'm going to go to Object Pattern Make. You gotta select what you want to make a pattern. And we can already see in the little preview that it has worked. And I can hit OK. And there is our pattern. And it did indeed clip to that bounding box that I talked about. So I'm going to hit Done. And just to show you the bounding box, if I move this out of the way now, and I kind of drag a selection box there, we will in fact find the that kind of bounding or clipping box that told it to end at the edge of the pattern. Okay, on to half drop, or well, let's give it a let's do it for real. So I'm going to actually hit Control Z to put that back where it belongs. Control Z goes backwards. I'm going to move that up to the top. Along, I'll just delete those notes, and with a new rectangle I'm going to fill up this page, or I'm going to try, and then I'm going to select our pattern from the edge. Okay, so I'm going to make a new artboard, and we are going to talk about probably half drops next. And to make a new artboard, which is kind of a new space to work, a new page, Illustrator makes it really easy with this artboard tool, and then you can come up here to this new artboard button, which looks like a square with like its corner folded in. This symbol means new in many different contexts across the Adobe products. So there's our second artboard, and we can start drawing on that no problem. Before I do, I just wanted to think a little bit more about these repeats. So if on a straight repeat, come on. Gotta have that guy selected. Layers are tricky sometimes. If on our, shoot, I have a pattern on the fill. There we go. Okay. If on the straight repeat, this is W, and this is H. Let's even make this into a little rectangle. So if this is W and this is H, then your objects are getting moved over, you know, 1H and up if they're on the bottom. Oh wait, no, not 1 over H. What am I doing? 1H, or they're getting moved up 1W, right? So in the X or in the Y. Anyway, if in the half drop, because of the way your half drop lines up with other shapes on its half there, we have to move them a little bit differently. So if this is still W and this is still H, and we have a heart right here, we are actually going to want that heart to come in over here. So anything that you kind of make a diagonal, anything that goes off the edge over there comes on the edge over there. If we have a shape up here like that, then we would have a shape down here like that. So this heart is getting moved in the X. I got these backwards. 1W, 1H. Ignore this. Skip ahead if this is confusing. So the heart is getting moved in the X direction, 1W, but it's also getting moved in the Y direction, 1/2 H. Okay. Anything that is going off the edge, though, would just get moved 1H up. Anything that is going off the top or the bottom. So if there's a circle here, there would also be a circle here. So that's the half drop. Things get 1H. Things get more confusing, or no, they don't get more confusing. It's a similar process. The circle gets moved 1H. With the brick, we have a rectangle with width and height, and it lines up with its other squares well on the sides, right? But on the top and the bottom, it lines up on the half. So anything that is going off the edge over there should be coming on over there. So in this case, that heart is getting moved in the X direction 1/2 W, and in the Y direction 1/2 H, because it is getting moved all the way down and then half of the width over. We're gonna do it here. So I accidentally adjusted my view somehow. There we go. Sorry, tangent. Sometimes the math is helpful though for some people. If it's not helpful, I'm sorry. So we can shut off that layer and have this layer selected. So Control minus to zoom out. So let's use my last name. Let's choose a new font. I'm going to adjust the font or the text box there, and I am going to go to Type, Create Outlines, and now it's still grouped when I click it with the black selection tool, and I like to go to Object Ungroup, even though you can select them with the white selection tool. And let's do more of a tossed this time, so I am going to rotate some of these letters. A tossed is a repeating pattern design that doesn't really have a distinct top or bottom, which is sometimes kind of tricky to do. But once I have this kind of all mixed up, I'm going to again draw a rectangle. You can do this before you place the words or your motifs. Let me start off by making it a different color. I just double clicked on this box down here to get to this menu. Oops. Okay, so I, again, really only want things going off the top and going off of the sides. I don't really want anything going off of two sides like this, or going off of like the page on the corner, just because it makes everything more difficult. And honestly, it's a lot easier if you kind of organize it so maybe two things are going off the top and nothing is going off the bottom. You know, maybe you kind of even drag this so that it orients it more for stuff just going off the top and just going off one side. It's also a little bit easier. We're doing the half drop, so I am going to turn on my rulers and drag out a guide. So view rulers, show rulers, click on the ruler, hold it, and drag out. Sometimes you can get it to snap to the center box, but because we're going to use math, it honestly doesn't matter. Also, I might change the size of the background in a minute here. But what I was going to say is we really don't want it to even, if this is a half drop, so we are splitting the tile lineups at a diagonal here. It's a lot easier to have things just going off of one side right now and not centered in the middle like this, because for this we would have to copy and paste it twice for it to be in all the necessary spots, and over here we're just going to have to copy and paste it once. So they can go over the center line in the middle of the tile, that's totally fine, but on the left and the right it is a little bit easier if we just have the one. So yeah, I might make this R a lot bigger. I just hold shift to make sure it scales at the right, keeping all of its proportions. So let's see how this goes. For my top ones, these can just get moved directly across. I'm going to write down the size of the shape, 5.2, 3.3. And I'm actually going to change the 5.2 to just 5 because I want to be able to divide it in half. Oh no, that's not the one we need to divide in half easily. It's the 3.3 we need to divide in half easily. So shape, we're going to cut that down to just 3. See, that's going to make actually a big difference, but I just want to be able to divide it. Okay. I don't know why it's stuck on the type tool right now. That's annoying. All right. I don't know why it was doing that, but so this is just 3, or it should be. It didn't change it. Yeah, I feel like it was glitching. There we go. All right, so I'm kind of thinking also about like whether there's going to be space for this amount of T on this side, or this amount of T on this side, this amount of O on that side. So I think there will be. And we can always kind of scale things later on. I'm going to do this N first because it's the most complicated. This O and this T are just going to get moved straight across, but this N and this R are going to get moved diagonally. Okay, so the R is going to come over to this quadrant and the N is going to come over to that quadrant. I'm going to choose the N and choose object, object transform move. I like to zero both those out to get started just because it kind of centers me. Preview is checked, and we want to move it horizontally the whole way because it does have to go all the way across. So 5.2. But vertically, we don't want it to move. It moved 5.2 inches to the right. We want it to be negative. That's why having preview checked is so important. Vertically, we want it to go halfway up our square, or a total of a half. So that is 1.5. Probably a negative 1.5 because down is up in Illustrator, and there it is in the other quadrant. So we can hit copy, and then we'll have 2 of them. I'm going to do the same thing for the R. If I don't do anything else in between, it can be pretty straightforward. Arrange, transform, move. We can just switch the vertical from positive to negative, or from negative to positive, and that should be enough. We can hit copy. All right, now I can adjust the T, which is kind of why I didn't do it earlier, because I thought the N might hit it. And I can select both the T and the O, and these are just going to get moved straight across. So object transform move. I like to zero them both out, and then vertically you're going to get moved the whole 3 inches, and we can hit copy. Beautiful. So before we bring this into pattern design, it should be a seamless tile, but we got to tell it to clip it to the edge of this box. So we're going to go to edit copy, edit, paste in back. Just in case, if you want to, you can go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and we also want to make sure that it has no stroke and no fill. So Ghostbusters through each of those. Now I gotta select everything, but just in case you run into this, Illustrator doesn't like it when you bring a guide into the pattern design mode, so I have my guides locked. So View, Guides, Lock Guides is what you need to do there, or delete your guide. Object, Pattern, Make is how we make the pattern or get it into pattern design mode, and it doesn't look good right now. It doesn't look seamless because we haven't told it that we want it to be a brick by column or a half drop. There is our seamless repeat. I can hit done. I like to move these things out of the way and fill this whole page with a rectangle. I can even copy and paste this rectangle because they're the same size. And choose our new half drop. Okay, one more artboard tool. New artboard. I have a third page. You don't have to work on pages. You can definitely have different files for each of these, but I like to work all in the same file. I think it's easy to compare the patterns as a collection afterwards. But let's get started here. So I guess I'll use my middle name since we're going for all of that. So that's Diane. And let's choose this guy. It's a nice font. I am immediately going to go to Object, Pattern, oh no, Type, Create Outlines, and Object Ungroup. And let's put a little bit more space in between each of these. And with my white selection tool, I thought it might be fun to make some of these a little bit thicker, so I'm clicking and dragging a box around them, and then I can manipulate the shape. Click and drag, and I'm holding shift so it's moving just to the left. So after I select them and after I start clicking and dragging and not choosing the wrong type, let's make the N really wide. Oops. Okay. With this, we are going to do a brick. Object, arrange, send to back, and choose a new color. So with a brick, anything that's going off on the bottom left is going to come on the upper right. I'm going to select all of these layers and actually group them again because I want to use them as a little unit. Group, object, group, and we're going to try to make a stripe. 6 by 3 maybe. And I'm going to drag out a vertical guide this time and try to snap it right to the center there. So I am just trying to think about like what angle of stripe will fit on this where the D will come back on over there and have enough room for it, because I just want to do something really simple here. We just have this one motif, and we could put it right in the center, but we want to have control over the overlap of it. So we're going to try this out. So the size of this box was 6 and 3, just for consistency. I will write it down. And we are going to go to Object, Transform, Move. I like to zero both of those out. and we can choose vertical. It goes the whole way, so because it has to go all the way to the top. So vertically, we know that we want that to be 3 inches. And with preview selected, we can have ourselves double checked. We need it to be -3. And then I think because half of 3 is 6, we want to move it, or half of 6 is 3. We want to move it 3 inches to the right. So both of these are 3, kind of just as a coincidence. That doesn't really mean anything. It's still just that we moved it half of the width over. Copy. Let's make a bounding box, that kind of thing that clips it to the edge. You can go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in Back. I chose Paste in Place, which is a good opportunity to show you that Object, Arrange, Send to Back does indeed send it to the back. And we want to make sure, I've messed up by deselecting. We want to make sure that we don't deselect, because we need to tell it to have no fill and no stroke, to be completely invisible. And then I can select all of them. Again, my guides are off and I haven't accidentally selected that 6 and that 3. And we can go Object, Pattern, Make. It doesn't look good right now because we haven't told it we want it to be a brick by row. And there she is. I can hit done, and I can move these up out of the way and get a new rectangle in there with that pattern in it. So we have a straight repeat, a half drop, and a brick in here. Right now they are definitely fulfilling the requirements of only using 8 colors across your 3 patterns. But you might want to mix it up more, but just be sure that, like, if in this one we can edit any of these super easily by double clicking on the swatch. You don't have to like necessarily change the colors out here and redefine a new swatch. We can edit the swatch directly by double clicking on it in the swatch panel. And I could start choosing all different colors for all of these letters. But what I would probably want to do if I was going to use a ton of colors in this one is to start saving new swatches. So I'm going to hit New Swatch, and then that swatch is added. And we know that we could use that exact color in another pattern so that we don't run out of the various colors, if that makes sense. I chose the one with the most letters, of course. Okay, done, and it will automatically update here to have more. I definitely have some striping going on with some black letters throughout the center here, just to reference back to that striping. And then over here I could choose to use that exact same blue. So I can grab that and choose that blue. Okay. It really is pretty straightforward. Just trying to keep in mind the structure of the structure of those different patterns and how those apply to how you're going to move your different motifs around. And you'll get used to it really fast. Okay? So I'm going to choose File, Save As, and we want to save it as a .ai file or an Adobe Illustrator file. And it's nice to save things with really clear coding, so I would probably call this Digital Tools Project 1 or Text Project. And save it, to your desktop, because if you're working on you can save it wherever if you're working on your laptop, but if you're working on a school computer, you then have to bring it onto your Google Drive or it'll be erased from the school computer. So I'm going to hit save. We'll save it to my desktop. And then I would log into your personal Google Drive and just upload it there, or on a flash drive if you prefer to use a flash drive. It's totally fine. All right. There is our lesson. I'll see you guys later.